Hey folks, we're going to do things a bit different today. As you can see, I did not need another day cooped up in my office, and hopefully the wind doesn't blow out the microphone. So, a pretty short time ago, I put out a video addressing some talking points that have existed about me for a while. To do this, I used the recent example of a video from the YouTuber Schmouder. The vast majority of his rather lengthy video was devoted to tearing apart the god-awful Substack Technopathology, which is home to the Neil Gaiman is Innocent project. And tearing that thing to shreds is a good thing to do. No question about that. Unfortunately, Schmouder didn't just rip apart Technopathology. He also brought me up and framed me as some form of notable figure who didn't believe the accounts of Gaiman's victims. To be more precise about it, he said this.
Unfortunately, because of that gap in time, from the shoddy reporting from Tortoise and then the good reporting from Lila Shapiro, that gap allowed people who were already incentivized to disbelieve the survivors to gather ammunition and to really ingrain their bias in favor of Gaiman. There's no better example of this than the series by the Council of Geeks. I found these videos to be, frankly, pretty shocking, just how eager they were to overlook credible evidence. In this series, it's just abundantly clear that Vera, the host presenter and I guess the lead only person of the channel as far as I know, she just doesn't believe the victims at all.
Schmouder's video was picking up steam, and I could see in the comments that people were taking his word about my work. So I took it as an opportunity to address the narrative that I in any way defended Gaiman or doubted his victims by contrasting what Schmouder said about my work and what I actually said in my videos. Now, just to be clear on this, Schmouder didn't invent this narrative. It's been floating around for almost a year and a half. I just hadn't addressed it before that. I tried to give as much grace as I could in that previous video and very much did not want to start an ongoing beef. So I was hoping that would be the end of it. Obviously it's not, since I'm talking to you right now. And now I have to worry about highway traffic. This path is not quite as isolated as I'd hoped. Anyways, the first and most important thing that I want folks to take on board. At the time of my recording this, while Schmouder has been doubling down on Reddit and in his own comment section, he has not, at time of speaking, released any other videos referencing me. Granted, he hasn't really had much time to do so, but my point is, I need to stress to hell and back that if he ever does make more videos, I won't address them. In fact, I won't even watch them. So if your only dog in this race is defending my honor, I'd prefer you not engage with any hypothetical future videos either. So if you were hoping for an escalation of drama, that's not what this is. So given that there's no new video, you might wonder, what am I even responding to? Well, in my previous video, I tried to give benefit of the doubt that perhaps Schmouder hadn't seen all my work or hadn't rewatched it since initial release. Reminder, the oldest video is almost 2 years old. Or perhaps maybe he'd just been in some of the spaces where the narrative is that I brought doubt to the stories of the victims, possibly even on purpose, and had taken that as truth without double checking it before he said it. He has shot down all of those possibilities, actually even slightly before my last video was made public. When Schmouder was challenged about his characterization of my work on Reddit, in his own comment section, and probably some other places I don't know about, in all those spaces he's been doubling down. He insists that he saw every video I made, well, except for the short where I told Technopathology, "You keep my name out of your fucking mouth." He's obviously seen that short now because it was sent to him by multiple people, including myself, after he tried to claim in his comment section that I was quote, mum on her video being used as evidence on Technoboy's abuse apologia blog, shrug emoji. But he is maintaining that besides the short, he'd seen all my work before he made his video. He is pretty insistent that he didn't misunderstand or misremember my work, and for my purposes, I'm going to take his word on that. Now you can check my previous video to see why the way that he characterized my work was in fact in direct contradiction to my actual words. But the point is, if he's going to insist that he made no mistakes, definitely had seen everything before he said anything about me, then I can no longer give the grace of good faith and have to assume that his side of this is in bad faith. I won't speculate as to why, because ultimately it doesn't matter why. Now, I knew it was possible he was acting in bad faith in that first video, but I have noted elsewhere that it is, on rare occasions, worth engaging in a bad faith argument as if it's good faith, because sometimes it's a bad faith version of a point that could be raised in good faith, and it might be worth addressing that good faith version, even if that isn't what was presented. But even in those cases, it's really only worth addressing once. Because bad faith arguments are endless, and if and when you're confident that it's bad faith, it's best you just walk away. You see? I'm on a walk. It's thematic or something. I'm walking away. That said, I'm going to address one thing that he said in comments and replies since his video went out. Because the big thing that Schmouder's been hammering in comments is very specifically that I said Scarlett, the first victim, never said no or stop. And to be clear, that's true. I did say that. Now, in Scarlett's accounts, she doesn't say specifically that she told him no. I do feel he's still approaching this in bad faith by focusing on a very specific and very short phrase and ignoring the full context, which, for the record, is this. Now, in Scarlett's accounts, she doesn't say specifically that she told him no. Her wording is that she didn't consent. Now, to be clear, as far as actual proper attaining of consent, that is a distinction without a difference. It doesn't matter whether or not she said no if she didn't agree to these things in the first place. There is a whole rant that I'm probably going to go on later about how the idea of just plowing forward until you hear a no is not a great approach for how to deal with consent, and it's why there's so much more emphasis on enthusiastic consent at this point in time. But the reason I'm going to bring it up, that she didn't specifically tell him no or stop in these instances, at least she does not claim that she did that. That is going to matter compared to some of the other stuff we're going to hear about later from the other woman involved. So I'm noting it for comparison, not to imply that it would make anything okay. That's kind of been the sticking point from the start, and why his double down has convinced me it's best to not engage in good faith, because he's been opting to zero in on specific phrases devoid of the context in which they were said. However, strictly speaking, yes, I said those words. Schmouder further insists that my statement that she never said no or stop is wrong and untrue. And I was very confident that was not the case. But I also wasn't sure. So I did something I thought I'd never do. I went back and listened to the Tortoise Media podcast, the first 4 at least, which were the only ones out at the time I made my original video. Even though I was confident that I was correct, I didn't want to leave open the possibility that in my notes, I failed to put down an instance where she specifically said no, and that resulted in an inaccurate statement. And as it turns out, I did miss it.
He made me give him a hand job, and I said no at first because I'm not interested.
As a cross-reference, I was able to find my notes from that first video, which had not been touched since July of 2024. And I went and checked to see what I wrote down. I was expecting to find a summation, something like quote-unquote coercive hand job, without reference to her saying no. Except I did note that she said no. So How did it happen that I said she didn't say no? I honestly cannot be certain about that. It was nearly 2 years ago. But the simplest answer is that I shot that video using 9 pages of extensive notes, but I didn't actually fully script it. So I either missed that moment when checking my notes, or maybe I was trying to say something more complicated and thorough, like she didn't claim he ignored her saying no, but he did coerce her to get past the times that she said no, and ended up just boiling it down too much and worded it badly. I don't know. I will never know. I suppose it's a reminder that even the most extensive notes are not a substitute for a full script. For the record, this video you're watching now is fully scripted. I've got a teleprompter app on my phone. I won't shout it out because they've been shoving AI nonsense into the app lately, and I haven't taken the time to find a new app. And yes, I put this little divergence in the script too. But getting back on point, I was wrong. Scarlett, the first victim to come forward, did say no, and that was in the initial reporting by Tortoise Media. And I've now edited that segment where I said that she hadn't said it out of that video. And I am sorry for my error. To be clear, Schmouder being right about this specific thing doesn't make his statements or comments about me good faith ones. To actually approach someone in good faith is to assume their best intentions. And I don't feel like he ever did that. He made sweeping statements in his video about my work and beliefs, and when challenged on those statements, he narrowed down to incredibly specific and very short moments, stripped all context out of them, ignored every single time I emphatically said that I believe these women, even though I was finding great fault with the presentation of the podcast, and he spoke of me as if my work was somehow made of the same stuff as a conspiracy-minded misogynist who is adamantly insisting that every word against Gaiman is a knowing lie or part of a grand plan to take him down. These are not things you do in good faith. And if you find yourself thinking that doesn't my removing that clip mean that I'm giving in to a bad faith argument, I suppose you could see that way, and perhaps people who think of me the way Schmouder appears to will claim that my acknowledging and amending this one thing validates everything else that they say about me. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. Thing is, I don't care. I didn't delete that bit to placate people who appear eager to presume and argue the worst about me. People who already came to a conclusion that I never believed Gaiman's victims and will never give me any amount of grace or benefit of the doubt. And if all I cared about was being tactical, like with an argument, I wouldn't be filming this right now. Because tactically, if I address this at all, it should be after he actually cites it specifically in some kind of follow-up video. Because maybe he won't even do that, or maybe he would do it so badly it defeats his own point. But waiting to see if he ever made another video before addressing a problem that I have now become aware of did not sit right with me. I suppose I could have clipped it out and not made this video. Problem with that is, it leaves the opening for people to be able to say that I was trying to hide it, or cover my tracks, or pretend that I never said it, and paint me a liar on that basis. And while I know what my intentions are in clipping that out, nobody else does, unless I say something. At the end of the day, a mistake is a mistake. And if it can be addressed, it should be. I didn't cut it out to try and please people who say the things that Schmouder said about me. I did it for myself and for the people who think better of me than how I'm being painted and talked about. And with that, I'm walking away from this. As I said, I won't watch or engage with any future video that Schmouder may or may not put out. And if he does make a video about me or mentions me in anything else he makes, I'd ask you not to bring it to my attention. I don't want to know. I'm done. What I want you to remember, more than anything, is that you are beautiful, you are valid, and you are loved. You are the council. I'm just running the meetings. Today was an outdoors one. But until next time, this council is adjourned. And now to thank my highest supporting patrons: Robin Moore, Jared Boyce, Zubin Lutfula, Auntie Kate 808, Mira G, Angry Casperl, Dave Hall, Snark Shark, Oliver B, Mystic Shadow, Sean Miller, Welsh Wrestling Geeks, Melissa Pedersen, Becky Sparks, Twylord, Tracy Scrabbit, Paolo Rabajago, Magdalena, and Sir Didymus is my favorite. Additionally, to thank some folks from the lower tiers of support: Lee and Andy, Gavin Hinden, and I Am Orcus. We have some new friends. We have Peppercorn and where'd the other one go? Where'd you go? Coriander has gone behind my head. They are very young and they haven't been integrated with the other rats yet, but soon. Okay, yes. Maybe you weren't quite camera ready.